We're now at a point where there's communication between different characters, and I'm going to use something called attack info that can be broadcasted whenever something starts attacking. So here in the characters folder, I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to call it attack info. Go in there, and I'm going to create a script, and the name is going to be attack info. Go in there, do the usual stuff. Save. And I'm going to create an empty object. Again, I'll call it attack info, and I'm going to attach the script. And I'm going to drag it into the folder and turn it into prefab. I can now delete this. I'll make the position 0, 0, 0. I don't really have to, but I'll do it anyways. Okay. I'm also going to go into the managers folder and create a script. And this is going to be a singleton. I'm going to call it attack manager. We don't need this. I'm going to delete this. Anyways, I'm going to get into the attack manager, create a namespace, and I'm going to turn this into a singleton. And this is where a whole list of all the current attacks is going to be stored. I'm going to go back to the attack info and determine what kind of information is going to be stored. So we're going to have something like the attacker, the attack ability, names for the body parts that's going to carry the attack, and some attack conditions like must collide with the object, or you must be facing the attacker. There's also other variables like lethal range, and the number of maximum hits an attack can do, as well as the current number of hits. Is the attack registered or not? Is the attack animation finished? And I think this is all the info that we need for now. We're probably going to add more as we progress, but this will do for now. I'm going to save and go to the attack script. And I'm going to start setting up some variables. Variables like the beginning of the attack in terms of timing, as well as the end of the attack. And every attack is also going to have a list of body parts that it's using. I'm going to call it collider names. And remember some of the options that we used in the attack info, things like these. I'm going to copy paste them in there. And every attack should also have a list of death animations that it's associated with. Death animators. And I think this is all the info that we need for an attack ability. First, I'm going to go down to on enter. And the first thing we're going to do on every attack is that we need an attack info. I'm going to instantiate the prefab that we just made. It was called attack info, and it was a game object, a prefab. In order to instantiate a prefab this way, we need that prefab to be in a folder called resources. So I'm going to go here and create a folder, name it resources, and put the prefab into that folder. Now I'm going to get the attack info from that object, get component, and if that info is not already included in the attack manager, okay, if it's not included, then we add it. Add it to the list of current attacks. And whenever we do this, I want a clean slate for the attack info. So I'm going to go in there, and I want something like reset info. And I want all these markers to be false. So when an attack first begins, it's not going to be registered, obviously, and it's not finished either. And I also want the attack info to know what attack it's based on. So attack ability is attack. We're going to pass that as a parameter. Set info and pass the ability into the info. And as we update our attack ability, I want the ability to register an attack. Register attack with the same parameters. And I also want a deregister method, again with the same parameters. I want the attack registered after the start timing. And I want it before the end time. And now we're going to look at the attack info that is inside the manager. And we only want to look at the info that hasn't been registered yet. And we also want the info that is only associated with this attack. So now we want to register. Of course, the attack info doesn't have a register method. So we're going to go there and create it. Public void register. And I think we need to take in the attack parameter and we set up the information. It's going to be the exact same info. Basically, we're copying the info from the attack. And current hits is always going to be 0 when it gets registered. And I want to mark this info so it's now registered. And I also want the attacker to take in the parameter. Okay, and go back and fix this code. Put them into the parameters. Let me put in a little failsafe. If info is null, then we pass. And deregister should be a little easier. We're doing exactly the opposite. So if the animation time has passed the attack end time, then we want to look at the attack info again. Again, we want to make sure that the info is not null. And if info is from the same attack ability, and if it's not finished yet, that's when we mark it as finished, and I'll just destroy it for now. Normally I would create a pooling system for this, but I think I'm going to do that in the next video. Let's just move on. Now we just got to go to the update and register and deregister. Pass on the necessary parameters. Let's make sure we save and go back to Unity. We're going to take a look at the player lead jab here. We got to set up the info. First, I'm just going to say attack time is 20% of the animation. And attack is going to end at somewhere around 30%. And remember the name of the left hand. So that's going to be the name for the body part for the attack, and it must collide. For now, let's just say one attack is just one hit. We'll take a look at range and the animator later. And if I click play, let's see what happens. If I take a look at the attack manager, looks like something is horribly wrong. I think the attack is not getting removed after being deregistered. Let's create a method called clear attack. And I want to put it at the end of the animation. And I want to look at the list, the current list of the attack manager. And if the info is null, or if the info is finished, marked as finished, then we just remove it. Okay, I think this was the missing piece. Let's go back and play. It's hard to see, but every time I attack, the attack info is being created. And if I look at the attack manager, it's getting registered and deregistered based on the attack animation. So it looks like it's working. Now I want a script that looks at the attack info. So here I'm going to create something called Damage Detector. Again, let's go in there and do our usual stuff. This is a script that's going to compare collision info versus the attack info that is being registered. I'm going to put this script in the root, the very top of the hierarchy where the character control is. So in the very beginning, I want to be able to get that component first. And then in the update, if the attack manager has some sort of an attack that is registered, then I want another method called, and I want to call it check attack. here we want to look at the attack info from the attack manager again. We're going to pass if the info is null. We're also going to pass if the info is not registered. Not registered. Or if the info is finished, meaning the attack animation has ended, we'll also pass on that. If the info is some sort of a collision attack, then we want to check whether it's really collided or not. So if it's collided, then we take some sort of a damage. Here's how we're going to check for collision. Remember, we had collider for the character controls ragdoll body parts, and we're going to compare that to the attack info. Remember, we put the list of collider names into the attack info. So if the name is the same as the collider's name, then we return true. Otherwise, it hasn't collided with the attacker. I'm going to go up and put in the right parameter. And for taking damage, we don't have a death animation yet, so I'm just going to debug, put in the attacker's name. Info attacker, game object name. And I also want the person who's being hit, which is this game object. I'm going to go back up and pass on the right parameter for take damage. This shouldn't be ragdoll parts. We only want to check the colliding parts, not the default parts. Save and go back to Unity. I'm now going to add the damage detector to all of our characters. The suited man and the dummy. And let's click apply, and click play and see what happens. So if I attack is being registered, and if I make any kind of collision with the registered attack, we now get the debug. Exit play mode. I want to add a space here. Now I want a death animation to go along with this. I'm going to go to mixamo.com and look for some sort of a fall animation. This looks all right, so let's download it. And just like before, drag it into the Mixamo animations folder. And we're going to set it up just like we did before. Humanoid, configure, T-bind pose, done, animation, rename it, falling back death. Okay, apply, materials, get rid of it. And I'm going to go to the characters folder and create a new folder called death. And I'm going to create an animator, name it falling back death. Go into it and drag in the animation we just downloaded. And turn on foot IK. And then I'm going to go back to the attack script. And I'm going to have a public method that returns the animator, get death animator. And I want it to be a random animator of the list that we put in. So random range between 0 to the death animators list count. And simply return that animator. Now in order to access this, we just got to go to the damage detector. And when the character takes damage, we want to change the animator into the animator from the attack ability, get death animator. Let's also make sure that the attack count gets added once you take damage. Save and go back to Unity. I'm going to go to the attack object and add the death animator from the death folder. Drag it in there. Since this is the only animator, we're not going to get some other random animator. Let's just click play and see what happens. And if I attack, the character dies too. Let's go back and fix it. I think there's something horribly wrong with the damage detector. First, I want to say if the current hits is more than or equal to the max number of hits, then we also continue. And we also want to look at the attacker itself. If the attacker is me, you don't want to take damage. Okay. I think I should organize this code later, but let me just go back and play. Okay, seems to be working fine. Let me take a look at the death animator or animation. Okay, let me click apply and play. Okay, let me switch the dummy and the suited man. So I'm going to turn off the manual input for the suited man and turn it on for the dummy. Should work the same. Okay, looks good. There's still a few things that are buggy and the animation is not exactly fine-tuned yet, but I think we've already done enough for this video. In the next video, I'm going to fix everything and fine-tune the animation as well. So thanks for watching. I'll see you guys soon.